Hello Riven mains and Yasuo mains alike, I am the Nightwing, Way of Life Esports, coming at you guys with another League of Legends video. Thank you all to your likes and views on my Worlds 2019 group draw reaction. I did not know that to this day, even just looking back at that video, that I actually would have got, that is the highest viewed video on the channel. So thank you guys very much. It means a lot that, you know, I finally was able to get a video that high up. It's been a hard time to get a video that far up since there are so many bigger, you know, League of Legends experts and analysts in the field, and it's just really hard to get yourself in the foot in the door. But I think that doing stuff like that wasn't the initial goal. I always wanted to do like group draw reactions, but I never had a channel back then for League to do any of that. So, you know, all of those world predictions, all those great world predictions I made back in the day. I even told my friend that Samsung Galaxy was gonna win a world championship. He was like, "You're freaking nuts, dude." And then I was like, "No, this is a good team." And he's like, "No, yeah, no." And then, well, you know, it happens. So I had a lot of crazy predictions. You guys will never ever know. Put down in the comment section below what was your craziest prediction out of your entire League of Legends competitive watching. But as we're talking about EU. So EU, quietly a pretty good region for what it was, battling with North America to get in there. XD lol. Okay, so let's kind of scale it back. Let's go all the way back to 2018 Worlds, where G2 and Fnatic lose to IG. Both of them actually lost to IG, and G2 arguably to get there upset RNG. I'm not gonna get into if RNG choked or not. That's not G2's fault that RNG decided to, you know, play Protect Uzi 24/7. That's not really their fault, but that's another video debating, you know, if RNG played good. So G2 get past RNG, the tournament favorites. Fnatic stomp Cloud9, but have a really hard time against EDG. They make it to the finals against IG. I think people need to really understand that IG were in theory almost better than RNG at last year. Because you have to factor in, if you didn't watch the LPL, you didn't know who IG was. And I feel like a lot of the Fnatic fans, it was hard for them to understand that IG were just the better team. Yes, they dropped random best of one games to Fnatic, but you have to kind of factor in, those are best of one games. Those really don't matter. And like, yeah, it's good to beat them in a best of 5. But it didn't happen, and KT Rolster ended up getting more games off, you know, Invictus Gaming than Fnatic did. So, you know, KT Rolster were the better team. It's just that we basically had the finals in the quarterfinals, but that is kind of disrespectful to say, you know, the quarterfinals was the finals, because Fnatic did make it to the finals, so you have to put respect on that. And I'm not the type of dude that is going to disrespect a team like that, because that's just not fair to them. Obviously, KT Rolster did not make it to the finals, and that's just how things work. But if you want my honest opinion, the finals really was KT Rolster versus IG. That was insane, man. That's one of the best. That is just a lit fire best of 5. Oh my god. And then people nowadays want to say it's overrated. Yeah, those people just started playing League, like, you know, yesterday. So why does their opinion matter for anything? So the EULCS rebrands as the LEC. We have a lot of things coming in to spring. In spring, we have Misfits Gaming Super Roster. That, oh man, how we all had Misfits Gaming Super Roster as 3rd in our power rankings. You guys did. Don't lie to me. You guys had Misfits in your power rankings at 3rd. So did I. And we had Origins team coming up. Vitality. Obviously let go of Kikis. I don't think that was the good decision. Even in that moment, I never thought that was a good decision in order, you know, to actually kick Kikis from Mowgli. That was one of their worst decisions as well. And later on down the year, it panned out the exact way I thought it was. Schalke making changes since Nuke Duck, amazing. And Visit Chachi and Vander leaving Upset. Upset got an entirely new team. Then you had Rogue coming in. Rogue obviously was running one of the worst lineups I've ever seen in my life. Finn, Wadid, Kikis, freaking Senkux, and Hikyu, and oh god, it was horrible. You had Excel coming into the league. They had a lot of interesting names on the roster, but yeah, you had Kasing and Exile coming in. And then you also had Splice coming in. Splice were a really slow team, to be honest. They had just the slowness about them. And most people thought that they were just going to be a 7th place team. But they ended up getting a little bit more further than people expected. You had SK Gaming coming back into the league. They obviously were basically sporting a new roster. The only person people really remembered was Dreams. Because the other guys were on Mad Lions with Nemesis. Nemesis ended up getting picked up by Fnatic. And then G2, obviously you guys know the story around G2. G2 had ended up obviously getting caps from Fnatic, and then Perks ended up role swapping to AD carry. So with how the spring split went, a lot of things went a lot more crazier than most people would expect. You know, looking back now, I can kind of think that it's a good thing how spring split worked, because you got to see the better in summer, if that actually makes some sense. So let me just talk about spring split, and then let's go into that. So basically, when spring split starts, you just know that G2 is going to be first place. That's just I don't think anybody with a brain predicted them not to be first place unless you're a Fnatic fan. And what's really bad for Fnatic is that they actually started 0-4. Yeah, it was crazy. They almost went 0-5. They almost lost to Rogue in that one game. And then later on, they started to ramp up momentum. They ended up going on a Cloud9 2018 10-game win streak, you know, to close out the split. Then you also had the most incredible, one of the best of one games I've ever seen in a region, is when you had Fnatic and G2 face off against each other the second time around in the spring split, where they had that incredible backdoor play. Oh my god, that was an incredible game. Yeah, I know G2 were losing it, but you know, hey, they already locked first place. They were playing Promise Q because Mickey X ended up having wrist issues. I mean, come on. You already locked first place. Like, what do you really need to try hard for? I know some people are going to tell me that's kind of salty, but hey, we got a really, really good game out of it. Then, after that, basically G2 lock first place pretty early in the split. They go undefeated for literally the first half of the split. You also have Fnatic coming back later on at the end of the split. They didn't look that good during a ton of the games because some of them were actually really close, but they managed to find their footing with their new roster. They had to adjust to the fact that Caps wasn't, Nemesis wasn't Caps, and vice versa for G2. They had to adjust that Perks isn't Caps in the role that you had to obviously transition over. Then you also had basically for G2 had Caps playing out of his mind. He was basically just clapping people. You also had Mickey and Perks later on came into his own man in the bot lane. I always thought that he could be a decent AD carry. Even when I found out the news, I was like, he's not. I don't think he's just gonna come up here and feed. I know some people are saying, well, AD carry mechanics are different than mid lane mechanics because of they have escapes, they can poke at long ranges and stuff like that. But you have to factor in that he's not gonna come up here and feed. They wouldn't have did that unless they exactly knew if it was gonna happen. So Mickey X, after previously being on what's the team? Misfits, came over and was a completely different player. Made Mickey X look like one of the best supports. Obviously in EU, Yankos was playing great. They all were playing good. Wonder was playing good. The whole team played exactly to the standard that everybody thought they would have. Now, what's really interesting is that Misfits, their roster just basically had no synergy, and everything imploded basically during spring split. They finished 8th on the split. All the players looked like horrendous trash. The first few weeks looked pretty solid, and then right after that, it felt like all of them just really didn't know how to function properly. I thought that Soaz was the best player on the team, and that's surprising, right? And It obviously, didn't work out the way it did, and they obviously looked worse and worse as the weeks went on. They were actually the team to give Rogue their first win. I was like, what in the world is going on with these people? How do you give Rogue their first win? Because this was back when Rogue was like 2-16 as they finished their split. So obviously a big yikes with the roster, and it's the common thing of building a super team and it failing because of personality clashes and not seeing the game the same way. Okay, so then you have SK Gaming performing a lot better than people expect. I considered SK Gaming's run in spring a lot more reminiscent of what FlyQuest does. You have not so good players, but when you actually have the better team starting to play better, they're gonna look worse, and that started to happen for them. But they didn't lock playoffs at that point. Remember, SK Gaming and Schalke had to go through a tiebreaker in order to actually make it to playoffs, and then that's when SK Gaming won. Selfmade got Rookie of the Split. No doubt he should have got Rookie of the Split. He played absolutely incredible. Schalke was going through their own little problems. They were second place with Vitality, right there with G2. This is when you had Memento on the roster. It just, Memento's mind basically collapsed, and they all couldn't play. They later on failed in that tiebreaker game, obviously against SK. You also had Vitality having their own issues. I think that people just figured out how Vitality played the game. They didn't really ever change their playstyle. It was more like, if you can survive early game aggression, then you're going to be the one to beat them. But they did manage to make playoffs. They were 7-2 at one point. I don't know what went so wrong with them. Even looking back, Cabochard, I think, was the MVP of the split, but Caps got it. But, it's overall, that's just how I felt like things should have went for the regular season. There's not much else to really cover in the spring split other than the other teams that just didn't do anything. Rogue didn't do anything. Excel didn't do anything. But we're forgetting my boys Origin. And because I love Xpeke, he's awesome. So Origin start off surprisingly really bad. They go, what 6-6 in the first few weeks of the spring split. Then right after that, they obviously get second place. They managed to get very, very far up in the standings. They even beat G2, actually, and it's not Fnatic, it wasn't Splice, it wasn't Misfits, it was Origin that gave G2 their very first loss. And later on, all of the teams are wrapped up. We have G2, Fnatic, Origin, SK, Splice, and you have Vitality as the playoff teams. So playoffs kick off. Fnatic dismantle Vitality. I mean, like, you get fisted in your actual butthole. Yeah, that's what they did to them. It was so bad that I don't even know why Vitality even bothered loading onto the Rift personally. So it happens, obviously. Then you go into the next round, which was, I think it was SK versus Splice. If I'm not mistaken. And then obviously Splice pretty much have a pretty tough series against SK. They later on managed to win 3-1. Vitality and SK had already, I think, peaked during the split, and I think that the playoffs were just an indicator that, okay, these guys are done. These guys have had their little 5 minutes of fame, and then it's over. Basically over. Okay, so the next round kicks off with G2 playing against Origin. Now, their first game of the series was really close, and then right after that, G2 just dismantled Origin and back-to-back 25-plus minute games. It was really, really, really thrashing. The first game was filled with Dragon Steals, running up toward the base and finishing off the Nexus. Origin had a game plan and put up a good fight in game one, but later on just couldn't close out the series. G2 advances to the finals. Fnatic play up against Splice. This is the series in which Fnatic's issues get exploited by Splice, but Splice obviously aren't going to have the caliber of players to obviously take down Fnatic. Later on, Fnatic beat them 3-1. And then even though I don't know why the last game Kabi played Veigar AD carry, it's just one of those things that you're never going to get. Why did he play Veigar AD carry? Kabi, what are you doing? Overall, I thought Kabi was the all-pro AD carry. I know some people didn't want to give him credit for where credit is due, but I mean, he really was the best ADC you had. So, best in terms of the regular split, obviously. But yeah, Fnatic advanced to the next round. Well, they're going to face Origin, and then if they win that, they face G2. Now, this series was so so surprising. You think you're going to get Fnatic G2 rematch of the spring finals from last year when Fnatic had caps and when they 3-0 G2. But no, Origin had different plans. Origin's like, no, we want to be in the finals for our very first inaugural spring split. So, as Fnatic and G2 start to take out in the Rift, it is very, very apparent that Fnatic is not playing up to the standard that you actually know that Fnatic can play up to. It just really was an off day for them. I still felt like they were the better team on the day. I don't know what happened to them during that period in which their brains ran out of their heads and then just started running away from them. Basically, I do think Origin was a good team in the split. I just think that they have a bunch of players that just didn't really have that high caliber that you expect from a lot of the really good European players. But they are good players. It's just you just didn't expect Origin to beat them 3-1. And those are still, I still think today, to this day, that Fnatic could have beaten them, but it didn't pan out that way. Not Origin's fault that Fnatic are choked. And then you have Fnatic versus G2 in the spring split finals for the inaugural season of the LEC. Something you probably never thought you were going to say. I know most people going in probably thought Origin was, just a playoff team, and realistically so, that's true. Origin were literally just a playoff team, and, well, they proved that they were more than that at that current point in time. G2 dismantled them. It's not even funny how unbelievably laughable that series was. They lost so quickly that G2 probably went to a club, got dinner, got some strippers, Carlos just throwing money at those girls. They won that fast, and G2, as I predicted, won the 2019 LEC Spring Split. Now, EU and the G2 boys head to MSI. Now, MSI is a different beast for G2 because you heard in interviews and everything else, Perks, Mickey, Caps, Wonder, and Yankos all talking about they have really great synergy. They really wanted to test out their team against a international group of teams because EU just really wasn't challenging them that well. And then you get to the first day. I was crazy that you can go back and look at the predictions. I predicted G2 to beat SKT in that first game, and lo and behold, they did. I'll get into SKT's issues and the possible LCK video. If you want to see that, like the video, and I'll probably get to that also. Because SKT was playing too slow, and yeah, G2 obviously capitalized on that to kind of basically run through their MSI group stage run. I know some people like to say they lost to the Vietnamese team 2-0 because previously in 2018 Worlds they also lost to Phong Vu Buffalo. They are like 3-1 against Phong Vu Buffalo. It just happens with certain teams because I don't really personally care if they lose to Phong Vu Buffalo. Like, why does that matter? Like, I think it's kind of one of those things that people try to make out to be like it's bigger than what it needs to be. Like, just imagine this. Okay, so remember when Unicorns of Love would beat TSM, and Unicorns of Love was like 4-0 against TSM. And this is when TSM was our best team. And it's like, does that make Unicorns of Love was Unicorns of Love really better than TSM? Probably not, and that's sad to say because I don't like TSM, but it's sad to say, right? Because Unicorns later on aren't even in the LEC, so you gotta factor in it. There are teams will have teams, good teams will have that one team that is just that just can randomly beat them. It doesn't matter about players, doesn't matter about game plan. It's just like, you'll see that in every region, like this random bad team is going to beat this good team sometimes. It just happens. It just happens in sports. It happens in competitive sports. This Phong Vu Buffalo beating G2 means almost nothing. It literally will mean nothing at the end of the day. Because the reason why it meant nothing pans out for the rest of the story for MSI. Later on, G2 do very well. They get third, losing a couple crucial games, obviously, put them at third, meaning that they're at the mercy of IG picking them. IG ended up choosing TL. We know how that panned out for them. So G2 play up against SKT. Really, really close best of 5. They got destroyed game 1 because they tried to Sona and Taric. I don't know. They lost minute 1. Basically, they lost like minute 1. That's all you need to know. And then game 2, Caps came back with a pentakill. Game 3, really close in some aspects, but Teddy's virus was too much for them. And then you had game 4, Faker make that big Silas Gnar play when he stole Wonder's Gnar ultimate. Then after that, G2 managed to come back. It's really funny that people said SKT threw that game. When you go back and watch the game, G2 had a gold lead. They were the ones throwing, not SKT. Watch the games, educate yourself. People need to stop overrating Korean players. So along with overrating Korean players, later on during the game, G2, as per they were ahead, actually overcome SKT in game 4. Game 5, Perks picks Syndra, and Mickey actually doesn't pick Pyke as you would think, because Wonder had been secretly playing top Pyke the whole MSI as he got a chance to get it, and then a bunch of other people started playing the Pyke top, which they really shouldn't have, and then they are able to overcome SKT. G2 finally get their revenge against SKT for beating them at the 2017 MSI. Yes, so G2 finally get their revenge, and unbest known to everybody, this is the 3rd best of series that SKT had ever lost. SKT has only ever lost best of 5s to Samsung Galaxy in the world, I'm talking about internationally, not competitive, not in their own region. Internationally, SKT has only lost best of 5s to Samsung Galaxy, G2, and they don't really lose best of 5s. It's just like they've only lost best of 5s to 2 teams, which is crazy that it had to come from a Western team that they actually lost a best of series. It's been ridiculous. So right after that, G2 beat TL because G2 advances to the finals, and then you obviously get this NA versus EU MSI finals. No one thought it was going to happen, but hey, it's here, and then it's as quickly as it began, because G2 make TL look like Excel, and that's an understatement because they dismantled them. So G2 win the 2019 MSI. Yes, EU have a trophy since season 1, which most of their... I don't know why people consider season 1 a trophy, because I'm not going to debate about that. It's okay to have it, but it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Like, it's season 1. Who was playing in season 1? Exactly. You don't remember because no one cares. That's the thing. But yeah, so EU finally bring back a trophy after having a drought of almost 8 years of having a drought. So yes, G2 are the MSI champions. Then they come back to their own region. Now, coming back into summer, basically to kind of wrap it up, because it's not really that much to say, it was more or less so Fnatic really being a lot better, Splice getting a lot better, Origin falling off. You also had Vitality playing the exact same way. You also had Rogue, picking it up. They had chose to run with a few different lineup of players. You had Vander coming in to the bot lane with Woolite. Schalke had actually switched out what's his name? Memento with Trick. They were a lot better. Not the best, but they were a lot better. It's really interesting that SK fell off the way they did because they switched out Warlub with Sakura. A lot of people were really, the Spanish fans were super, and I mean super mad about that. And then it happened the way it did. SK Gaming were losing a bunch of games. They managed to almost get to a tiebreaker scenario. They did. They lost to Vitality in a tiebreaker game. Origin fell off so hard. It's been attributed to a lot of things. I think that they fell off because these are basically, sometimes Spring Split is a wrong indicator about how strong someone can be. Because Spring Split is whoever gels kind of faster wins, or if you just have the better team objectively, you're going to win. And I think when you move towards that aspect alone, you finally got to see who Origin really was. So what I think is that who they really are was the Summer Split, but the Spring Split, they just overperformed. That's what I personally think myself. Everything falls apart for Origin. Everything falls apart for Origin. They look really bad. Splice are a lot better. I'll go over Excel. Excel try out Yarnin and Kasing. Week 1, Yarnin throws a game. He doesn't get any more playing time. I don't know why. Excel, it's basically their story is I try this, I try that, I fail. That's kind of what their story is. Rogue, at least when they failed, they at least tried, and they actually got to playoffs this time around. They had some really good individual key players, and it really did pay off for them. Exactly. Misfits fall apart so bad. Now, the Superstar roster that has time to gel didn't gel. It was just more of the same. More the same. They all started sucking. These are players that I think people overrated because of name alone and not actually seeing gameplay. If you rated Febibin super high up coming into Spring Split based off his clutch gaming performance, you were high. Also, if you somehow rated Maxlord highly after Spring Split, you're also high. The same thing goes with all the roster. The roster just didn't work out. They started bringing up academy players. That's when you started seeing Leader and Dan and the players that won EU Masters. But it just didn't work out. And everything basically implodes. They get a couple lucky wins against Splice and Fnatic. But what does that really matter when you wasted an entire year? I mean, it doesn't matter at that point. It's like, okay, yeah, you beat Fnatic in the one lucky time you get during a year. Like, did that really matter? You know, it's just stupid that people think that it's such a big deal when it's really, really not. It's actually sad that Fnatic will even drop a game to that. But I digress. After that, basically you go into the upper echelon. Schalke are still kind of there. Most of the teams are, relatively still fighting for mostly a playoff spot at that current point in time. You had Fnatic, who were in first place, but they sacked their first place by playing Magifelix in mid. Because people thought they wanted to have Reckless take a break. I think they just had an argument at that point in time when they switched up from Magifelix. This went back when Bwibble played Rengar top and G2 was playing Garen top. Crazy things in the LEC. They don't know what the hell they want sometimes. But yeah, Fnatic and G2 are pretty much head and shoulders above everybody else in the league. Fnatic beat G2 the first time around, then G2 beat them the second time around. Now it's time for playoffs. And now you get to Vitality versus, who did they face actually? I can't remember. Vitality faced off against Schalke. Interesting set of games, nonetheless. I think this showed people that Schalke really wasn't that good, but just Vitality was just that much worse, and there's just nothing you can do at that point. It was a clown fiesta. Rogue ended up facing... Rogue ended up facing Splice, and then actually 3-0ing Splice in a really cool upset, You would think that going in Splice with 3-0 Rogue, but nope, did not happen that way. Then, you get to the next round, which is Rogue versus Schalke. I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any type of scenario. Rogue versus Schalke was super close. Rogue was definitely giving it to Schalke. If Larson doesn't perform his 9/11 Corki, it's definitely a 2-2. I think that looking at it right now, it was a 2-2 series at that point. It should have, realistically, I know people don't factor in somebody choking like that, but if he just doesn't do that, Rogue has a 2-2 lead. It's literally, the games are matched, and then it's like, who knows how game 5 goes, but those things you can't really account for. So yeah, Schalke overcome Rogue, kinda, and then you have G2 versus Fnatic. Fnatic come out swinging to 2-0 lead. They play global compositions with the TF, with the Tom Kench. They are obviously playing really, really well. You have the Shen coming out for Hylissang. G2 are falling behind, but later on in game 3, they managed to turn it around, and they obviously play out things very, very well to get to the point where you're actually reverse sweeping Fnatic. They actually managed to reverse sweep Fnatic and get to the finals and continue to rule Europe. Also, now you have Schalke versus Fnatic. Fnatic are desperately not trying to have what happened to them in the Spring Split happen. Then actually after that, Fnatic 3-0 Schalke. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Let's get to these finals, baby. So in the finals, let's go. So you have the finals coming in, and Fnatic definitely want their rematch because the previous week they got reverse swept. The series starts off Fnatic and G2 going 1-1. Later on, Fnatic pull ahead with their Jax and Shen composition with their globals and split push team. G2 managed to pull it back in game 4. Then in game 5, obviously, people have to understand that, you know, certain compositions need to be played out in a specific way. But I actually feel as if Fnatic could have beaten G2 if they had not been so hasty with their champions. It really did feel like the pressure was getting to them, and G2 managed to find that and actually overcome Fnatic, and G2 win the 2019 LEC Summer Split. Back-to-back champions. This is the year of the super teams, as I've been calling it, as literally every single super team back-to-back has won their major regions. You had obviously Team Liquid and Fnatic, not Team Liquid and Fnatic, Team Liquid and G2, super teams winning their regions. SKT, a super team in their own right, in their region, won back-to-back splits. IG, they didn't win summer, but they at least won spring. So yes, if you count pretty much just for all of these major regions, the super teams have won 99% of the splits. That's crazy. Then, after that, Fnatic end up not with a seed because of how Europe does their, you know, qualifying for Worlds now. Fnatic played an incredible series. It's one of the best of fives in EU history. Obviously, Nemesis actually outperformed Caps, but it just doesn't really matter in that context because everybody else in G2 is a really strong player individually. I don't think that giving Whipple Orin in that Game 5 was the right decision, but nonetheless, it happens that way. Right after that, you get to the regional qualifier. Splice and Origin play a pretty atrocious best of 5. Origin don't play cold because of health issues. Splice win 3-2. They even brought the Silver Scrapes for that. I think the best thing about that series was hearing Silver Scrapes because that series sucked. Then you get Splice versus Schalke. Splice ended up 3-0ing Schalke. You know, Schalke's season comes to an end. So does Origin's. I think they can take hard lessons from the split. I think Origin got a little bit too cocky from getting, you know, top placings in spring. They already looked bad going into Rift Rivals, facing off against North America. I think that playing up against the North American teams obviously gave them the wrong indication of basically, you know, how strong they were because they did not look good going into it. And I think that though these can be good wake-up calls for Origin, I don't know who you would even come close to replacing, but you know. Onto Schalke, they lose. That's even worse. At least Origin got games off Splice. At least that happened. But Schalke, yeah, they do the same. They're like RNG. It's just like really 10 times worse. That's just how I look at them. But Splice ended up facing Fnatic for 2nd and 3rd place to go to Worlds. Obviously, if you picked Splice to beat Fnatic, you're out of your mind, high off balls, because they literally just had one of the best of 5s against G2, and then Splice overcome. Psych! No, Fnatic overcome Splice, and they win 3-0. Talk about a taste of your own medicine, Splice. So yes, that concludes the inaugural season of the LEC. The LEC did really well. The viewership was up. The entire league was really doing great. G2 and Fnatic, I think, were the standout teams of the year. Obviously, that was supposed to be the thing coming in. It was really hard to see Misfits obviously fail the way they did. It just, nothing worked out for them. Now, EU heads towards Worlds, as we know what the group stages are. Fnatic are in the group of death, and G2 are kind of in the group of death too, but let's be honest here, G2's probably getting out, and Fnatic may or may not be getting out. XD lol. You have Splice, who just drew into Unicorns of Love and Mammoth, so we're gonna have to see how that pans out. So yes, see you guys later. Like, comment, subscribe, most of all enjoy. I'm the Nightwing, and Wave Life Esports is signing out. See you guys later. Bye. Have a good day. Let me know what was your favorite moment from watching the LEC this year.